The gravel crackled beneath my boots, dust lifting into the heavy dusk like it was afraid to land again. Room 1118 sat at the far end of the parking lot, half swallowed by the sagging branches of an old pine and the gloom of a forgotten Tuesday. A neon sign buzzed overhead, Bates Inn still missing the S in rooms. That damned R had been gone even when I was 10. It looked the same. Faded green door, with a dent near the bottom, rust on the knob, and that chipped number, 118, barely hanging on. I stared at it for a long time, long enough that the cigarette I lit halfway through the walk burned down to the filter, singeing my fingers. I dropped it, watching the ember flicker out on the concrete. I hadn't meant to come back here. Not really. It just happened. Like a relapse you dress up as nostalgia. Like calling your dealer just to see how they're doing. I had the address saved in my phone under don't. That's what Dad used to call it too. Don't come back here, sweetheart. But I had, and I had the key. The motel manager was new. A guy with a vape and too many questions told me he found a box with old stuff from the 90s when he cleared out the storage shed. Photos, matchbooks, a pack of baseball cards. There was a room key taped to the lid. It had a name on it, he said. Walter G. Monroe. That ring a bell. I said it didn't, but I guess my eyes said otherwise. Now I was here, standing in front of room 11 and 18, with my backpack slung low, a stomach full of rot, and a heart loud enough to wake the dead. The door creaked when I opened it. No surprise. Same mustard yellow wallpaper, peeling at the edges like skin after a bad sunburn. The bedspread was a different color, brown now, not blue, but everything else was the same. The TV, a CRT with a coat hanger for an antenna, the mini fridge buzzing like it held secrets, the bathroom door that never closed all the way unless you kicked it, and the mirror. That goddamn mirror. I dropped my bag and stood in front of it, staring at my reflection. I looked tired, more than tired, hollow, the kind of tired that no nap or rehab stint fixes. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to remember what he used to say when he brought me here. Something about how the world was too much, and this place was, what? An escape? A haven? It's just you and me, Maddie. No one else. Just us. Except it wasn't. It never was. There was always the bottle, always the foil, and the spoon and that little hiss when he lit it up. He tried to hide it, behind the bathroom door, in the glove compartment, sometimes in his boot. But I saw it. Even at 10, I saw everything. And now, 20 years later, I'd become him. I dropped into the old vinyl chair by the window. It groaned under my weight. From my bag, I pulled out the orange pill bottle. No label, no instructions, just little white tabs like communion wafers, promising the same kind of salvation. I stared at them. My hand hovered. The mirror caught my eye again. I looked at her. Me, but not me. This woman in the glass, her eyes bloodshot, mascara smudged, a constellation of old bruises like memories she wore proudly. I hated her. I loved her. I wanted to save her. I wanted her to bleed. You did this? I whispered. You brought us back. I hadn't meant to say it out loud, but the silence begged for something to break it. I put the pills down. Instead, I pulled out the photo. It was bent at the corners, faded, the colors bleeding into each other like the past. Couldn't hold its shape anymore. Me. 10 years old, smiling wide with a chocolate milkshake in one hand. Dad's arm around my shoulders. He was clean-shaven then. His eyes still had light. I think it was the last time he took me anywhere that wasn't this room. I remember what I was wearing. A yellow sundress, with daisies. I remember because he said I looked like sunshine. He told me I was the reason he was going to get clean. He didn't. 2 months later, he OD'd in room 1118. I was in the car, windows up, seatbelt on, waited 6 hours before someone knocked on the glass. I was 13. I stood up fast, knocking the chair over. My throat burned. I couldn't breathe. The mirror mocked me. I punched it. Crack. It didn't shatter, just splintered. A spiderweb of guilt. Blood dripped from my knuckles. I laughed. It felt right. Then I screamed. Not out of pain, but because I hadn't screamed back then. Not when the cops came. Not at the funeral, not when my mother looked at me like I was the broken part of the story. But here I was, back in the same room, the same silence, the same ghost in the corner. And now the mirror had a scar to match mine. I bandaged my hand with the corner of the bedspread, sat back down. The pills were still there, waiting, forgiving. I took one, just one. It hit slow, like a warm hand on the back of my neck. I leaned into it, closed my eyes, let the guilt marinate, let the silence carry me somewhere that wasn't here. And just before I drifted, I heard it. A voice, soft, familiar. "It's just you and me, Maddie." I opened my eyes. The room was empty, but the mirror was fogged, like someone had breathed against it. I didn't sleep that night, just watched the mirror, waiting for him to come back, or maybe for me to disappear. The morning came slow and uninvited. I was still sitting in that chair, spine aching, blood dry on my knuckles. Room 118 smelled like mildew, and something older, like regret, had seeped into the walls. My eyes felt like they'd been scrubbed with sand, but I didn't move. The mirror hadn't changed, still cracked, still standing, still watching me like it remembered more than I did. I got up eventually, legs stiff. I peeled off my hoodie and stared at the blood on my hand. The makeshift bandage had crusted over. I peeled it off and winced. No hot water in the sink. No surprise. I rinsed the wound in lukewarm sludge and wrapped it again, this time with gauze I'd packed but hoped not to use. I didn't pack light. I packed like I wouldn't make it back. Backpack, pills, the photo, and a little cassette player. That old relic still worked if you banged it a few times. I did. It coughed to life, warbled a little, and played a mixtape Dad made in '97. Label was smudged, but I knew it by heart. Dylan, Cash, Tom Waits, whispering truths like bedtime stories for broken people. I let it play. I set it on the nightstand and just let it whisper while I cleaned. Something strange compelled me to scrub the bathroom, like I could make it right by washing the stains from the linoleum. I found a toothbrush in the drawer, someone else's, still damp. I used it anyway. 2 hours later, the place looked exactly the same. But I pulled out my notebook, the one I kept for, what? Resolutions? Apologies? It was mostly filled with crossed out names and fragments of letters I never sent. I started writing. "Dear Dad, you died in this room. I was in the car. You promised me we'd go for pancakes. You promised."
I scratched it out. Too direct, too angry,
Tried to forgive you yesterday. Couldn't. Today I just want to understand. Better. Honest. Still raw. I liked that. I spent the rest of the day pacing, writing, taking another pill. Just one. Always just one. Until the bottle got lighter. Night came. The music had stopped. The mirror hadn't. That's when the scratching started. It was faint. Just enough to pull me from the edge of sleep. A slow drag against glass, like fingernails trying to etch their way through the barrier. I froze, sat up. The cassette had rewound itself. I hadn't touched it. And the mirror, there were words on it. Foggy letters. Jagged, childlike. "You left me." I backed up, a heart in my throat. The air turned cold, like the kind of cold that hugs your bones. I touched the glass. Nothing. No heat. No trace of the letters now. Just my wide eyes and the spiderweb crack that cut across my reflection like a scar. I turned away. Couldn't look at it. Tried the bed. The mattress felt like old sandbags. I lay flat, stared at the ceiling, counted the stains. 18. Like the room number. Like the last time I saw Dad alive. Sleep didn't come, but dreams did. In them, I was 10 again. Yellow sundress, chocolate milkshake, Dad. Beside me, humming some song I never quite remembered. But his eyes weren't warm. They were sunken, black, empty. "You said you'd never leave me here alone," I whispered. He smiled, but not the way I remembered. His teeth were wrong, his hands were shaking. And when I looked down, the milkshake had turned to ash. I woke up screaming. It was 3:17 a.m. The mirror had a new message. Still waiting. I bolted outside, barefoot, breath fogging in the air. The manager's office light was off. The world was still dead. I lit a cigarette with shaking hands, smoked it down to the filter in 2 pulls. The motel was too quiet, the night too loud. I didn't go back in until sunrise. When I did, the message was gone. The mirror was clean, perfect, like it hadn't been cracked at all. But I remembered, and the scar on my knuckle said it was real. I picked up the photo again, studied it, and for the first time I noticed something new. There, in the corner, behind the milkshake shop, a man, blurry, face turned, watching. I never saw him before, but now I couldn't unsee it. I needed answers, and I knew where to look next. The front desk, the ledger, the records. Something told me Dad didn't always come alone to room 11, and something else told me I wasn't either. The front desk was as underwhelming as the rest of the Bates Inn. A glass bowl of mints, most melted into each other, and a laminated sign taped to the window. Ring bell for service. I rang it. No answer. I rang it again, harder this time. The sharp ding echoed across the empty lot, bouncing off the cracked pavement and peeling paint. I glanced back toward room 118. The blinds had shifted, just a little, like someone inside had moved. I knew I was alone. Didn't stop the paranoia. Finally, the door behind the counter creaked open. The manager, Kevin, I think he said his name, was shuffled out in pajama bottoms and a hoodie, blinking like a man pulled from another life. "You again," he said, scratching his beard. "Everything okay?" "You said there were records," I replied. "Guest logs, archives. I need to see them." He narrowed his eyes. "You a cop now?" I didn't answer. He sighed. "They're not digital, if that's what you're hoping. Old school ledgers, back room. But I don't normally." I slid 2 20s across the counter. His eyes flicked to the bills, then to me. Something passed between us. Something like wariness. Something like pity. 10 minutes, he said. "Don't break anything." I followed him behind the desk and into a cramped room that smelled like mothballs and printer ink. Metal shelves lined the walls, each buckling under the weight of thick, dust-caked books. He pointed to one shelf. 1990s are there. Anything older, you're out of luck. He left me alone with the past. I ran my fingers along the spines. 93, 94. There. 1997. It took me 3 tries to find room 118's entries. Each one like a needle prick. Wally G. Monroe, Walter. My father, he'd checked in 37 times that year, sometimes for a single night, sometimes for a weekend, sometimes with a note in the margin. That was me. But other times, there were other names. One in particular kept appearing scrawled in different handwriting, a rushed, looping cursive. R. Taylor. R. Taylor. I flipped through faster, heart hammering. That name showed up 15 times alongside my father's, and twice, with a note that chilled my blood. Pawn 1 minor, female. It wasn't just me. I stepped back from the book, like it had burned me. Who the hell was R. Taylor? Back in the room, I laid the photo out again. The milkshake shop. The figure in the background. I took a picture of it on my phone and zoomed in, enhancing the blurred lines until it pixelated. Nothing conclusive. Just shadow. But I couldn't unfeel the dread. The cassette clicked suddenly. Side A had ended. I hadn't played it. I rewound it and hit play. Tom Waits crackled to life, and over his gravel voice, just beneath the surface, I heard something else. Breathing. Faint. Ragged. Not mine. I stopped the tape. Silence. I started it again. Waits crooned. Breathing continued. Someone had recorded over it. A whisper came through. Not lyrics. A voice. "Don't trust the mirrors." I ripped the tape out, hands shaking. Sweat pooled at the base of my spine. I dropped the cassette, and it cracked against the floor. Then, the mirror fogged. Not gradually. Instantly, like someone had exhaled onto it all at once. 3 words appeared. He watched her. I stumbled back, fell against the bed. Another message formed below it. She wasn't you. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I grabbed the mirror by its frame and tried to pull it down. It wouldn't budge, screwed into the wall like a fixture, like a tombstone. I ran outside. I paced the lot, smoked, cursed, cried. I wanted to leave, but I needed to know. Who was R. Taylor? What had my father done? And why the hell did room L118 remember? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner, cross-legged, facing the mirror with a notepad in hand. And at 2:44 a.m., it gave me a name. Ruth. The glass bled letters like a wound. She cried for you. I screamed until my throat tore, but no one came. The next morning, I walked to the diner down the block. Darla's. Same cracked leather booths, same stale coffee, same old woman behind the counter who looked like she'd smoked through the last 3 presidencies. She didn't recognize me. Thank God. I couldn't bear being seen as that girl again. I sat in the corner booth, the one where Dad used to draw smiley faces in syrup and call me his sunshine. The vinyl squeaked beneath me, a high-pitched accusation. I pulled out the photo, zoomed in again. The blurry figure in the background haunted me. I hadn't imagined it, and if the mirror was telling the truth, and God help me, I was starting to believe it, then Ruth had been there too, not just in spirit, in history. I opened my notebook and wrote her name at the top of a clean page. Ruth Taylor. A waitress brought my coffee. I asked her if she remembered a man named Walter Monroe. Her brow wrinkled. Bit kinda tall guy? Looked like a used car salesman. She tapped her lip. Came in with a little girl, right? I nodded. She leaned in. You the girl? I didn't answer. Didn't have to. I remember him, she said. But he didn't always bring you. Sometimes there was another woman. Blonde, quiet, smoked like a chimney, stayed in the corner and watched the door like someone was chasing her. Did she have a daughter? She paused, thought. I think so, once. Skinny thing. Looked scared of her own shadow. Sat right over there and just stared at her reflection in the napkin holder. I almost asked if her name was Ruth, but stopped myself. Didn't want to lead her. Didn't want to invite confirmation bias into my ghost hunt. You remember anything else? They always sat near the back, close to the bathroom, like they wanted quick exits. And the man, your dad, he always paid in cash. I left her a tip she hadn't earned and walked out. My head ached. Back in room 118, the mirror was clean again. It always reset when I left, like it only spoke when I was watching. I stared at it, waiting. Nothing. Who was she? I whispered. Still nothing. I grabbed the cassette tape. It had cracked down the middle, but the tape inside was intact. I slid it into my old Walkman, hit play. Waits again. Then, a voice, soft, breathless. A girl. He said I had to be quiet, that she wouldn't understand. But I saw her. I saw the other girl, the one with the yellow dress. My stomach dropped. She was talking about me. He said we were the same, but we weren't. She had eyes that fought back. Mine just watched. The tape clicked off. I sat there for hours, piecing it together. Ruth Taylor. Another broken girl. Another secret kept behind motel curtains. My father had brought her here, more than once, and not always alone. I dug through my bag, found an old USB drive I hadn't touched in years, plugged it into my laptop. There, buried in a folder named Taxes, were scans of every letter Dad had sent me from rehab. Most were empty promises and 12-step rhetoric. But one stood out now. It was dated 6 months before he died. There are things I can't confess, Maddie. Things I buried so deep they found new bones. You were the only pure thing. I tried to protect you from it all. From her. From her. Not from Ruth. From her. Was he talking about Ruth's mother or someone else? I searched online. Public records. Archives. Nothing useful under Ruth Taylor in this county. But when I added the word missing, I found a hit from 1998. Missing child. Ruth Taylor. 13. Last seen near Carlsbad. No body ever found. Case cold. My vision. Tunneled. She'd vanished. A year after our photo. A year after my last milkshake. After room 11, I printed the article, taped it to the mirror. What happened to her? I asked. The mirror fogged. Words scratched in reverse. Hard to read. She asked for help. Another message underneath. You looked away. I dropped to my knees. I looked away. Had I seen her? Had I, at 13, looked a scared girl in the eyes and done nothing, buried it like everything else? The messages faded. The mirror cleared. But I stayed on the floor, eyes wide, lungs burning. Because a third message appeared, slowly this time, like someone tracing it with care. You can still help her. And underneath, smaller, find the room with the red door. There were no red doors at the Bates Inn. I knew that. I walked the lot twice. But maybe the mirror didn't mean this motel. Maybe it meant another. Or maybe it meant the one I'd locked inside myself. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling until the plaster patterns started moving like waves. My mind couldn't stop circling the same question. Where was the red door? I opened a map of the town, zoomed in on every motel, hotel, and roadside inn within a 15-mile radius, clicked through street view images one by one. Bates Inn was the only one I recognized. But then I found it. A place off Route 19. No reviews, no website, just a satellite photo and a blurred street view image from 2009. Shady Pines Motor Lodge. And there, half obscured by a crooked tree and a broken soda machine. A red door. Room 6. I packed my bag, didn't bother folding anything, just stuffed it all inside and checked out of room 18 without looking back. My knuckles still stung, my stomach was empty, and my head felt like someone had carved it open and replaced my thoughts with ghosts. The drive was short, 22 minutes of cracked pavement, dead stations and old fears crawling up my spine. The Shady Pines Motor Lodge looked like a place the world had given up on. Half the letters on the sign were burned out. The parking lot was empty. A buzzard perched on the roof. I parked near the office and stepped into the heat. The air smelled like motor oil and old cigarettes. I rang the bell. No answer. Then the door creaked open and a man emerged. Thin, grey, eyes like water, left standing too long. Looking for something? He asked. Room 16, I said. He studied me. You a relative? I blinked. Of who? He didn't answer. Just handed me a key. No ID, no paperwork, just slid it across the counter like he'd been expecting me. Room 16 was on the end. The door was faded, but still red, like dried blood. It vibrated with something I didn't want to name. I opened it. The smell hit first. Mold, dust. Something else. Something metallic and old. The room looked untouched, like someone had frozen it in the 90s. Faded floral bedspread, ashtray full of lipstick-stained butts, and a Bible on the nightstand open to Psalms. And on the wall, another mirror, this one larger, oval, framed in gold. I stepped inside, closed the door. The air changed. I pulled out the tape recorder, pressed play. Waits was gone, replaced by a hum. A low, steady hum like a dial tone underwater. Then, a girl's voice. I waited. I knocked. I bled. Nobody came. The mirror fogged. Why didn't you look? My heart thudded. I stared at my reflection, my own eyes accusing me. I didn't know, I whispered. I was a kid. The mirror didn't care. Another message. She begged. You smiled. Suddenly I remembered. A flash me, laughing in a diner. Dad across from me. A girl in the corner booth watching us. Eyes wide. Ruth. That was the last time I saw her. She tried to speak, tried to get my attention. I looked away, too scared to ask why she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. I had smiled. The mirror pulsed. Then it shattered. Glass exploded outward, catching me in the cheek, the lip, the hand. I dropped to the floor, screaming, but the shards didn't fall. They hovered. They floated. And in each one, I saw a different memory. Dad yelling, Ruth crying, a red door closing. My own face smeared with milkshake, unaware. Then it all dropped. The shards clattered to the floor. The hum died. Silence. I crawled forward. My hand reached for the largest shard. It reflected a motel room, not this one. Room 118, but in reverse, like a negative. And standing in the mirror, Ruth. She wasn't older. She hadn't aged. 13. Same clothes. Same hollow stare. She raised her hand and pointed. Not at me. At the nightstand. I looked. There, under the Bible was a small, rusted key. I picked it up. number etched in red paint, and run 118. But this wasn't the same key I'd been given. This one was older, tarnished, and attached to a thin metal tag etched into it. For her. My hands shook. The lights flickered. The door slammed shut on its own. I was trapped, but not alone. The red key felt cold in my hand. Not just cold, wrong, like it held a memory that hadn't happened yet. Like it knew something I didn't. I sat on the bed in room 16, watching the dust swirl in the air, like ash. My reflection was gone now. The mirror lay shattered, pieces scattered across the floor like glass constellations. In the silence, my breath felt too loud. I didn't want to go back to room 11, but I had to. If the mirror was right, if Ruth had left something there or been left there herself, then it was the only place left to look. By the time I returned to Bates Inn, the sky had bruised purple. The parking lot was empty. The blinds in room 1118 were still crooked, like they were waiting for me. I unlocked the door with the original key, stepped inside. Nothing had changed. That was the most terrifying part. The air still smelled like bleach and decay. The mirror still bore the scar from my fist. But when I pulled out the red key and slid it into the bathroom door, it clicked. I'd never locked that door before, didn't even know it had a lock. The door creaked open, but it didn't lead to the bathroom. It led to a narrow hallway, dark, cold, lined with mirrors on both sides. Each one warped, distorted, reflections blurred like underwater figures. I stepped inside. My feet echoed on tile. The hallway felt endless. Halfway through, I saw her, Ruth. Not in the flesh, not a ghost, but in the mirrors. Each pane caught her at a different moment, smiling, crying, staring blankly, as if the hallway remembered her piece by piece. I reached for one of the reflections. My hand passed through. I kept walking. At the end of the hallway, a door. Red. No knob, just a slit. And above it, a plaque. Confession. I knelt. Whispers leaked through the slit. Familiar. My father's voice. I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't know. She just kept coming back. And Ruth was so quiet, like she wanted to disappear. My stomach turned. I pressed my ear closer. She begged me not to leave her there. But I didn't listen. I thought someone else would take care of it. Of her. I banged on the door. No answer. The whispers stopped. The hallway darkened. A light flickered above me, and then the door swung open by itself. Inside was not a room. It was a replica of room 11, but cleaner, emptier. No furniture, just the mirror. And on the floor, a pile of children's clothes, a yellow sundress, a hairbrush, a notebook. I picked it up, flipped through pages of shaky handwriting. Want to go home? I don't think he's coming back. I heard them fighting again. She said it was my fault. The girl in the yellow dress smiled at me. I think she's lucky. I think I'm going to disappear. The last page was blank. I sat on the floor. The mirror pulsed. Words appeared, not fogged this time, but glowing faintly. You found her. Now remember her. Tears fell without permission. I clutched the notebook to my chest and wept for Ruth. For me. For all the silence. I stayed there for hours. When I finally rose, the mirror had cleared. But in its reflection, I wasn't alone. Ruth stood beside me. She didn't speak, just looked up with those wide, haunted eyes. Then she smiled and vanished. I stepped outside into the dawn, the red key in one pocket, Ruth's notebook in the other, and the feeling that, for the first time in decades, room 118 had let someone go. I didn't leave town right away. I told myself I was tying loose ends, that the truth was simpler. I couldn't let go. Room 118 had been my prison, my chapel, my confession booth. Now it felt like a wound that hadn't scabbed. I kept Ruth's notebook with me, flipping through it every night, rereading the same lines. I think I'm going to disappear. Her voice had bled into my dreams. Her words had burrowed under my skin. And the mirror, though now still, silent, had left something behind. Me. I was different now. Not healed, but raw, awake. On the 7th day, I went back. Not to stay, just to say goodbye. I knocked, even though I had the key. No one answered. I entered room 1118 and found it empty. The mirror hadn't fogged. No whispers. No messages. Just a quiet, ordinary motel room with a scarred wall and a cracked floor tile by the bed. I sat down, placed the notebook on the nightstand. "This isn't your grave," I said aloud, "but maybe it can be your marker." I folded Ruth's sundress beside it, smoothed the fabric one last time. Her name still felt foreign on my tongue, but it burned in my chest like something sacred. I left the red key on the pillow, and then I wrote my own confession. "Dear Ruth, I was just a girl. I didn't understand, but I saw you. I did, and I buried that memory because it hurt too much. I thought forgetting would make it easier, but all it did was leave you behind. I'm sorry for not asking your name, for not giving you mine. You deserved more than this place, and you deserve to be remembered. Maddie." I folded the note and slid it under the mirror's frame. Then I walked out. As I stepped into the sunlight, a breeze lifted the curtain behind me, just enough for the sunlight to hit the mirror's surface, and for the first time it didn't show me. It showed Ruth. Not 13. Older. Grown. Whole. She smiled. And then the glass darkened. 6 months later, I'm clean. Not perfect. Not cured. But alive. I moved states. Started a job at a shelter. I help girls who look like Ruth, and sometimes like me. We talk about rooms we never should have been in, and the people who left us there. Sometimes I see her, in my dreams. Not as a ghost, as a girl who got out. And sometimes, when the silence is kind, I can almost hear her laugh. I haven't gone back to room 11, but I know it's still there, waiting for someone else. Someone who needs to remember, someone who needs to confess, someone who needs to let go.